Hello guys, this is me, Juries, your just ESC analyst. And today we will do something a little bit different. We will of course talk about the results of the first semi-final, in particular about the countries which didn't make it to the final and how close were they to the actual qualification. But then we will do some kind of analytical work and see what countries would have qualified and what the results would have looked like if the juries would have voted not only in the final, but also in the semi-final. Of course, it will be just an estimation based on my analysis and based on our final data, because unfortunately the results of the jury voting from the semi-finals were not published. So without further talking, let's start with the countries which didn't make it to the final, and we will start with Iceland. Well, this year Hera doesn't have to be scared of heights because she landed on the last position in the semi-final. She has received just 3 points, 2 of which were from Sweden, maybe based on the fact that she has performed at the Nordic ESC pre-party in Stockholm, and 1 point from Cyprus. So unfortunately not a very high result for her, but she did her best and I think the performance was actually very entertaining. The next one is of course Azerbaijan, just 11 points. However, it's actually almost 4 times the points of Iceland. And by the way, 6 countries have voted for Azerbaijan. The highest by far mark was from Moldova. They got 6 points from Moldova. The other countries, they all gave just 1 point to Azerbaijan. So shout out to Moldova because they have ranked this one even higher than the Irish one or Lithuanian one or the Finnish one. So Moldova really wanted Azerbaijan to qualify this year. Performance was unfortunately just very weak. I think they had like one of the worst camera works in their performance from all the contestants this year. The vocals were also quite weak and in general the staging concept just didn't work. So I hope next year Azerbaijan comes back as strong as never before and will definitely qualify to the final. Now our place 13, but actually almost with double points of Azerbaijan, so of our previous contestants, and it's Moldova. Unfortunately, Moldova didn't finish that high because, well, vocally Natalia was absolutely stunning, but song-wise and especially performance-wise, it was just quite weak. She has received 5 points from Portugal and 4 points from the neighboring Ukraine. These were the highest marks of Moldova. Natalia was unfortunately very much disappointed by this result, and there was some bitterness coming from her afterwards, where she was liking some posts in, I think, Instagram or something, which were accusing Eurovision in general, and especially like the contestants as the one from Ireland, that they're bringing something bad. And her energy from Natalia was, of course, the bright one, the angelic one. And yeah, so unfortunately she didn't make it, but I think it was not a huge surprise. So Luna was unfortunately another contestant which also didn't take the non-qualification with pride. She was really disappointed by this result. But if we take a look at the points, she actually had almost double the points of Moldova, who finished just 1 position below. She missed, I think, 16 points to qualify to the final. But she had 9 countries voting for her, while, for example, Serbia, which finished 10th, had just 8 countries. But the marks for Poland were not as high. She has received quite some support from the Polish diaspora around Europe. For example, 8 points from Iceland, 7 points from Ireland, 6 points from the UK, also some support from the neighbor countries. So from Lithuania, I think she got 4 points, and also 3 points from Ukraine. But Luna was just very unlucky to be sandwiched between these 2 massive televote favorites between Ukraine and Croatia, who each got more than 80% of the maximum possible score what you can get from the televote from all countries. So this is very impressive, but not so lucky for Luna. So I hope she has a great career ahead of her. While just 8 countries have voted for Serbia to go to the final, actually 50% more, so a total of 12 countries, thought that Australia should be a finalist. But unfortunately, none of these countries have given Australia more than 5 points, so they have really missed this kind of neighbor factor, which helps some countries in Eurovision. They got their highest points from Sweden, UK, Ireland, Finland, and Germany, while 6 Eastern countries didn't give any points to Australia. These were our 3 Balkan countries, also Cyprus, Azerbaijan, and Ukraine. I have to admit the vocals were a little bit shaky during the performance, especially towards the end, but the song is still such a great high energy. These Aboriginal elements were absolutely great. The performance was stunning, so I think Australia really deserved to be in the final this year. So as I have already said, Serbia was ranked just by 8 countries, top 10 in the semi-final, while 6 of them actually ranked Serbia with just 5 points or less, so similar like Australia. But they had in their pocket, of course, Croatia and Slovenia, who together gave 22 massive points for Serbia, which of course made a huge difference. Serbia is definitely staying on the edge of non-qualifying for a second consecutive year in a row, so again 10th place in the semi-final. So I hope next year they come back super strong and prove to us that Incorporo Sano by Constructa was not a one-time action, but actually a quality seal which Serbia can achieve each and every year. And Slovenia has finished 9th. They were just 10 points ahead of Australia, and of course 20 points from Serbia and Croatia have also helped a lot. But she was actually ranked top 10 by 12 countries, so the same like Australia. And surprisingly, she got 7 points from rest of the world. I was a little bit not positively surprised that she was not given any points by Germany, because I live in Germany. I have voted for her more than 10 times, and I was really hoping to see at least 1 or 2 points for Slovenia, but unfortunately I was in minority. So this is how the televoters have voted in the semi-final number 1. But what do you think? If the juries would have also given their points like in 2022 and before, would it have made any difference, or would we have had the same 10 qualifiers? To answer this question, let's first take a look at how actually these countries have ranked the finalists in the final of Eurovision. So this table basically shows you the places these countries have had in the jury vote of these participating countries in the final voting. So generally you can see Croatia as a huge jury favorite of the semi-final. For only one country, Portugal, Croatia was not in their final top 3 entries from the first semi-final, and actually their even least favorite entry from semi-final 1 qualifiers. Ireland did extremely well with all countries except just 2, Cyprus and Moldova, while Portugal was not liked also by Cypriot again and also Finnish jury. Luxembourg did consistently well in all countries being ranked by all in top 13 except Serbia, who ranked them 16th. We can also see 3 clear outsiders of the jury vote, and they would be Slovenia, with actually half of the countries ranking them even outside top 20 in the final. Also Finland, which managed to be in top 10 area, which receives points of course only in Australia, but also Serbia, which was ranked outside top 15 by 11 of 17 countries who were voting in this semi-final. And now, having this knowledge how actually the juries of these countries have voted in the final for the participants from the first semi-final, we can try to simulate how the results of the first semi-final would have looked like in accordance with the jury vote. So I was also trying to consider that some juries have really rated a very good voices very high, so maybe they would also tend to vote for Moldova. Also, I have considered the fact that the juries generally tend to prefer the radio-friendly songs, like good pop songs, which they can imagine in their countries to be played on the radio. So I think countries like Poland or Australia should also benefit from the jury vote. So now let's take a look how, in my opinion, the points of the juries would have looked like in this first semi-final. As you can see, Slovenian 10 from Croatia and Finnish 7 from Australia are really big standouts for these countries, giving them almost a third of their jury points. Due to weak vocals, Azerbaijan would most probably finish last with the juries, maybe getting some points from Cyprus, as they are both Asian countries. Australia would definitely receive some love from northern countries such as Sweden, which usually gave them their highest scores, Ireland, Iceland and the United Kingdom. Moldova, on the other hand, would probably be more appreciated by the eastern, a bit more conservative countries. So this is how the jury points would have most probably looked like roughly in this semi-final. Of course, when we are talking about the finalists, it's a bit easier to put ones higher or lower. But when we talk about the non-qualifying countries, we don't really know exactly if the juries would stand behind them or not. So I was trying to consider a little bit some historical voting patterns. but also which songs are generally kind of looking more appealing for the juries than for the televote. But now the most interesting part is, of course, if we combine these fake jury results with the real televote results, what our qualifiers would have looked like. So I have used this Wikipedia format, which you probably know, and you can see that the points of the countries placed between 8th and 11th places are very, very close. So basically it would be more or less a lottery to see which one is left in the semifinals, and in this case it happened to be Finland. What is probably surprising is that Slovenia would most probably not qualify from the semifinal if the juries would be voting, while Poland and Australia would have better chances to be seen in the final again. This is for me absolutely mind-blowing, because I have really expected that Slovenia would have received some love from the juries for this super impressive vocals of Raiven, for the artistry behind her performance, but the voting in the final has proven me wrong. And with the help of the juries, I think Iceland would have ranked slightly higher than Azerbaijan, leaving Azerbaijan on the last place in the semi-final for a second consecutive year. And I definitely have to mention that there would be no such close fight for the first place if the juries would vote, because they would heavily stand behind Croatia and not behind the Ukrainian entry, which for me is actually kind of surprising. I really thought Ukraine, with its impressive vocals, modern sound, would definitely be more of a jury bait than Croatia, but maybe the juries were just expecting that Ukraine generally is doing very well in the contest, and they wanted to show some love to this a little bit more unknown country such as Croatia. Also, small notice, Luxembourg would win the tiebreaker for the 4th place in the jury vote, because it was given points by all countries, while Portugal was blanked by Croatia. So these are quite interesting results, aren't they? If you still haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so. It would help my channel enormously. And this actually concludes our jury results and the combined results of the first semi-final. I hope for you it was interesting. I hope you were surprised by one or another number, where the juries would have rated some countries higher than you have expected or lower than you have expected. I'm quite curious to hear from you which countries you think the juries maybe would have voted a little bit more heavy for than what I have expected in my prediction. And don't forget to like this video and stay tuned, because the same kind of analysis and prediction video for the second semi-final is coming very soon. Bye bye.